we'll stick down here for now. All right. We ready to pray? Lord knows we need it.
So I think we're just going to use Liz's.
Well, that runs on this one too.
So you can't run on both.
Gracious
So
and bountiful God,
I'm
we
live
come
right
to you
now.
in the silences of our lives and the noise and the clutter of our reality. We ask that you join us in this space. We ask that you send your Spirit to give us guidance, to light the way, to give us the courage to speak and to listen. We ask you to give us all of the things that we need in these moments, recognizing that we know your love is unending. And no matter what we do here, what we say here, and what we choose, you know us. And we hope to know ourselves a little bit better, having been part of this community. In your many names we pray. Amen.
As most of you know, I'm Eric Smith, your Governance Council President. And you've probably already read many of the materials, so I won't give the quick preview I already had planned on what we're going to speak about today. But as you know, we are going to vote on the projects that you've probably all seen in email or in various other forms. Before that, we'll have a quick financing update. Not really quick, actually. It's going to be a fairly substantial financial update. And then we'll hear from Restoration and Remodel. Then the part I really want to speak about is the vote. So to help the vote hopefully be fairly efficient, but also do what Robert's Rules of Orders endeavors to do and allow time for discussion, that is what I'm going to follow. When it comes time for the vote, I will read the amendment that has been prepared, the motion that has been prepared, and I'll ask for a brave, assertive congregant to say, so moved, if you agree with that motion being brought for discussion, not necessarily to be voted on yet, but being brought for discussion, okay? And then I will ask for someone to second the motion. And if a brave, assertive congregation member would like to second the motion, we will have that. And then I will open the floor for discussion. We'll do that twice. There are two motions. Within that, if we have discussion enough that we need to perhaps modify things, Robert's Rules of Order does provide a mechanism for alternate motions, and we are prepared to engage that process if necessary. Before all of that, we will take questions. So some of what may come up in discussion might be handled in the question and answer session before we move to vote. Are there any questions about the voting process before I hand off? Okay, thank you for your patience. Jane?
I will start off. Jenny Terry is joining me up here. I get to do the fun part, which is celebration of the reality that we have had a very successful fundraising campaign in a very short amount of time. And I want to say thank you on behalf of Jill Olinger and Barb James. Neither of them are available in person. They are hopefully online, and they are celebrating as well. We came together and created a plan that was put into motion just a few weeks ago. And as Dakota was able to announce while I was away, we are beyond our fundraising goal, and there is still room. We know that there are some of you who said, hey, I'm really planning to give to that. And then December 31st came and went, and the 1st came and went, and the 7th came and went, and now we're at the 14th. And what we want to make clear is that any gifts that are pledged or given to the Fire Recovery Fund will be used for that purpose. We know that as we get into this project, there are going to be discoveries. We have done our best to make sure that we have contingencies built into that, but we also recognize that there are ways of supporting ourselves into the unknown. So if you are still among those who have not put in a pledge or a gift, please know that it will absolutely be welcome. And we are sitting at around $540-ish thousand, which is beyond our $450-ish thousand goal. So with that celebration, do you all want to clap for yourselves? I feel like the the sub-zero temperatures are just making us all a little chill today, and that's okay. But it is worth celebrating what you have just done. And we give thanks that it allows us to have the conversation that we're about to have. Jenny is going to put even more details around that celebration. So come on up. Jenny Terry is serving as our treasurer. You get this one, and it is on.
Great.
You have all sorts of good stuff to tell us.
Yes. Thank you all for staying with us and persevering online. I'm going to talk a little bit about cash flow and how we can make this all happen. So during our previous discussions, we had anticipated that we will need a loan to cover the cash flow gap between when the construction expenditures occur and the 3 years that we allotted in our capital campaign for the pledge gifts to be made. The capital, as Lori just mentioned, the capital campaign has been successful not only in terms of the amount of overall fundraising, but we've also received many of those gifts sooner than we anticipated. And so this has really put us in a much better position from a cash flow standpoint than we anticipated. And I also want to name the successful grants that we've received as part of that good cash flow story as well. So the early giving and the grants, they have reduced the overall amount that the church might need to borrow, and it's also delayed the time period in which we might need to actually borrow money. So obviously both of those things are wonderful. They reduce expenditures for the church. We've done some projections as to cash flows and when a gap might occur between what we received in terms of gifts to the campaign and our construction outflows. And one possibility is we might not need a loan at all. It's really amazing. Because the church has reserves through the building fund that's not been committed to this campaign, we might be able to rely on our own reserves kind of to bridge that gap. And as pledges come in over the balance of the 3 years, construction process and other factors. Our projections are that if we have a gap, expenses sometime in the fall. So it'd be beneficial for us to be able to review our projections as we go through this process, as we complete the church's fiscal year and we go through the budgeting process, our usual budgeting process for next year. So when we get to the portion of the agenda where we're talking about making motions and financing, you'll see that what the starting place, our recommendation as far as financing goes today, which is that the congregation authorize governance to take out a line of credit if needed, the short-term loan, to cover cash flow against the pledges for the projects if needed. And when we get to the discussion part of the agenda today, I'd be happy to take any questions that folks might have. So I think John and Craig are next.
Hey, Jenny. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, that's supposed to come at the end. Thank you. Good advice. We'll start. Are these our mics or the school's mics? Hi, everybody. We're going to pass the plate to collect just a little bit of money to pay for the chiropractic bill of our camera person who is squatting here at the front of the stage. I'm going to go like that so I can look at my notes. Like that. Okay. I'm going to talk very quickly about 3 categories of things. The insurance company, I can hold it if I have to. The building itself, and the restoration company or general contractor. And we're going to fix the microphone at the same time. So, insurance company, number 1, continuing to be a very good relationship. I will say that the insurance settlement process is not a fast process. It requires a little bit of patience. But they keep sending us patients. I'm sorry, I'll just take it. I think that'll be all right. All right, they keep sending us money. They've sent another $175,000 to us since the last time we met as a congregation. We have had some negotiations with them, and we've had good results on those things that we have felt like we had to negotiate with them. Looking forward, I have high hopes that we will be able to iron out a process that is pretty flexible and also non-nightmarish. In terms of invoicing the insurance company for the thousands of things that we have to buy before we move back into the building. We will not get paid more by them unless we show them the invoice for every single item, but exactly how we do that and so on is something that we're working out. And of course the big turning point you know about, and that is that they gave us the final estimate for the building restoration itself. That is what allowed us to move forward with the demolition stage, the real work at the building after all the waiting. Number 2, the building itself. That's a good segue. Lots of demolition is already done. When you walk through the building, you would notice the change. There is a lot of drywall and insulation that has already been removed. Every single scrap of carpeting has been removed. Every ceiling tile has been removed. Ceiling tiles are like sponges that soak up the smell and the soot, so they all had to go. When you stand in the fellowship hall, you can see right into the kitchen and right into the storage room where the fire began, because the drywall on both sides has been removed. So all you see now is the metal and wood studs where the walls used to be. The organ pipes are all removed and safely stored at the organ company along with the organ console and the piano. So those things are all being cleaned off site. The main thing I would say that's gone is the stink. The building already does not smell very bad at all, and they haven't even begun to clean. They've just gotten rid of all of this stuff that really kind of absorbs and retains the smell. So it's really already starting to look like an empty shell into which we can rebuild. So the next step, you've heard this before, but I'll remind you, deep cleaning and then spray sealing of the wood surfaces, the porous surfaces. And if you approve it today, very quickly they will come in and do some additional demolition work to remove the walls, for example, that we no longer need. The roof decking beams for the sanctuary have been fabricated. They are now being stained so that that work can be done, so that that third hole in the roof can be sealed up. The contents, the loose items in the building are being cleaned and deodorized, and they will be back to us in a week or 2, and we will put them in storage so that we have easy access to them. Number 3, Service Master by Crossroads, or maybe it's Crossroads by Service Master, our current restoration company and general contractor in a sense. Another good relationship. They are doing good work. They are excellent at communicating with the insurance company, which is like a whole different language. So we now have 3 active contracts with them for the roof, for the contents cleaning, and for the building demolition stage. So you might ask, what is next then? Well, if you approve it today, our next challenge, of course, will be weaving together the insurance-paid restoration work and the improvements that you have indicated a pretty strong willingness to pay for. And that all is a matter of balancing it and turning it into one project and figuring out how do we balance the cost, the value, the quality, the timeline that we want to chase, etc. And most of our remodeling projects, almost all of them, are basically doing more of what needs to be done because of the fire, or doing it in a slightly different way. So we're going to rebuild the kitchen, but we're going to do it with better cabinets and better countertops. We're going to replace the flooring, but we're going to do it with better carpeting than we used to have. We have to pay for that. And by the way, before you recarpet the sanctuary, let's rebuild the whole stage, which we call a chancel, and the choir loft, etc., right? So we have a number of options about exactly how to contract for all of that. We could get subcontractor bids via our current general contractor, who is Crossroads. We could go out for multiple bids, etc. And in the interest of transparency, I'll tell you, we don't have complete unanimity in terms of how we do all of that contracting. So we, the design team, is going to meet with the Governance Council at next week's meeting and go over all those choices again and plot a course and get the Governance Council to help us decide exactly how to proceed with that. And then our goal, our timeline is that we're in a position to seek bids starting February 1st and begin the work on March 1st. So that's where we are. Before I turn things over to Craig, I just want to say a brief word of thanks to all of you and all of you on YouTube today. I mean, I'm just kind of amazed by this process, frankly. I mean, in one project, it's been the weirdest experience ever, right? Because in one project, we have all these elements of shock and sadness and depression and anxiety and stress. And in the same project, we have all these wonderful elements of looking towards the future and thinking about things from a greenfield point of view and excitement about the future and that kind of stuff. And, you know, the first half of that is because of a lightning strike. But the second half of that is because of you guys and your willingness to kind of stick your neck out and band together and make things happen and build the St. Peter's of the future. And I think that's pretty cool. So thank you. And now here's Craig.
Well, John said it pretty well, and I don't have a lot to add. I believe most people have seen either in person, online, copies, but we have the boards, and we presented the 7 projects, primarily the 6, because the 7th one's a little hard to show on paper, being the safety and security aspects. But this is the current design as it stands. So one piece I'll speak more of is kind of what we learned in the preview sessions. And so we are already continuing the conversations, and we will continue the conversations on technology integration for the building, safety and security and fire integration into the building. There's still items to be determined on the flooring aspects. So things like that, and that's just normal to the design process and where we're at. So we're at a good place to be making the decision today, and it's rather normal for the work I see to be at this point. So we're in a good place where we've gotten, I think, the design to a point to where we can make decisions, while at the same time getting feedback on how to better that design. So if there are any questions on the design, I'd be happy to ask that or answer those, or we can do that during the Q&A portion.
Yeah, you're right, setting it up, Q&A now. So questions about anything you've heard thus far? Financing, all those sorts of things.
I was glad to hear about having a line of credit, because I worked in banking, and the best time to get it is when you don't need it. So I would encourage that possibility, because if you wait when we do need it, because we don't have as much in the bank, etc. So I think that's a really good idea, and typically similar to homes, the higher the limit, the better rate you get. So just, I like what I heard today on the financing.
Thank you, Rob.
I had the same thought the other day, and I was holding it in my back pocket for the governance meeting this week. So, no, I appreciate you affirming that.
This is a detail, but I know we tried to do this when we did the gender neutral bathrooms. Are we gonna get bottle fillers with our water pump?
Yes.
I have 7, including.
I think I brought this up a couple meetings ago. I'm just curious if we had a plan. Do we understand where the insurance is going to say, okay, we are funding ongoing operations up to a certain date when our reconstruct is done, and anything after that that you do, you run to fund the operating expenses? Do we have an answer, or do we have a plan that our money will actually cover that?
I would say they have not made a commitment to any period of time. They've also not shown any anxiety or hurry. And the delay that we've suffered up until the very end of December was really their delay. So it's a question. So I think our argument is, look, it takes a certain amount of time to now do this reconstruction project. And and therefore it takes what it takes. So I think we're going to be okay in terms of this.
Absolutely say, what are they doing now? The rest of the schedule is yours.
They could, yeah. What Brian said, because I took his microphone away from him, is that at some point the insurance company could say, well, if all you had done was the restoration effort, you'd be done by now. And so you got to pay for the rest yourself. I think that's possible. I also want to try to hurry, not rush, but try to get through this process quickly and blend all of it together. So hopefully we won't have a conflict there.
Maybe we want to drag out the last couple of reconstruction efforts for a whole month.
Yes. Good. Other questions?
Try to load 2 or 3 in here. Historically, we've had issues with HVACs. Have they done any looking at those systems to see the shape of those? 2, roof, we've had roofing issues in the past. Is that being incorporated anywhere? Then the third being the solar panels on the roof. Have those been evaluated? And do we know anything about those at this point?
The short answer is yes, all those are being evaluated. The mechanical units were evaluated so they could be turned back on, which just happened in early December. They were off from July, and so Edwards, our maintenance contractor for mechanical, came and checked those. And we'll be continuing to have conversations with them as we move forward to make sure everything's really up and running. But right now, they're just trying to provide the heat so pipes don't freeze. The second one was roofing. So we didn't have any concerns with the roof prior to the fire. The concerns that have happened because of the holes cut in the roof are being, the flat roof is already done. And then they're waiting, as John mentioned, the process for the ceiling, which is actually the structural sheathing for the roof, is very precise in the staining that we want to have back. And so that's prolonged that, as well as the lower temperatures now. or the fire, there is a major electrical panel in the north portion of the and that's where the majority of the electrical panels are. That those haven't been, but they will when they put them back up.
I have a question from Diane Carr. The new flooring proposal says all flooring. Have we incorporated new flooring in the original narthex as part of the plan now?
Excellent question. That is one of the ongoing discussion items for the group. We welcome input, but it's something that had come up in the last couple of weeks that we're still exploring. Nothing's been decided yet.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, it was mentioned that all flooring would be replaced and asked if that included the ceramic tile in the narthex. And the answer is we're exploring that, and we'll obviously let people know. Correct.
Can you repeat that?
Yes. So the question was, the current estimates does not include the narthex. No, it does not. We believe we have built in contingencies to allow for some of those things to be incorporated.
If I can add just one thing, just because I'm guilty of an error that we don't want to add to confusion. The paper version of this handout that you have today says replace all vinyl flooring and all carpeting, which is what the estimate does amount to. The version that we had, maybe it was Monday of this week, had an error in it that I created in last-minute editing, which took out a clarification about exactly this question, the ceramic floor in the narthex. So I apologize for that. So the ceramic floor in the narthex would be a separate thing that we would have to talk about, and that's what Greg is saying, that we can continue to research that, look into it, and think about it. The other thing I want to make clear in terms of the roofing question that was raised is when it comes to the sanctuary roof, which we call the sloped roof that you see from, that you can see when you're in the parking lot, the firefighters cut a hole of about 2 feet by 3 feet in that wood. We will replace the wood in that entire section that you see when you look up in the sanctuary. They are going to replace the entire roof that is sloped with new shingles and add this insulation that Craig talked about. So that's kind of a lucky outcome of what has happened here, is that we get $75,000 or $85,000 worth of new roof on that sloped roof portion, just because of the one hole that had to be cut in the roof.
One more clarification on the narthex tile. That is something that insurance wouldn't cover. So to the question of it being in our estimate or not, it would have to be included in our project and be funded by St. Peter's.
What are the upgraded surfaces in the kitchen?
The flooring will be LVT, which is a resilient flooring product. Then what we had before were MDF cabinets, and we're going to go to a full plywood box cabinet, which doesn't sound like much, but it'll last longer. And then we have plastic laminated countertops, and we'll do a stone or stainless steel or cords. I put in a hard porous surface, let's put it that way, that is more durable than plastic laminated.
Hi, I just have a question on the two motions before we get into it. And John, you mentioned this, and it might be directed to you. You mentioned gathering bids and then, or figuring out a bid process, is it the governance or the remodel team that's ultimately responsible? I mean, I'm confused on who would be deciding who we're going to spend this money with.
Another great clarification. So my view, and we could discuss this, but my view is that this is a congregationally led congregation, but that the congregation elects the governors and other elected positions to go off and do work and so on, and they all get paid a lot of money to do that. And so, to me, I think the answer should be the governors. The governors should decide, and we're trying to muddle our way through all of this, but the way we are behaving is that the design team that I lead, which is 7 humans, reports to the governors from the point of view of decision-making and direction, and are we doing a good enough job or fast enough, and so on and so forth. So that's why I would say I think it's the governors that would make that decision.
Dakota up here?
Thank you, guys. I have 2 questions. First of all, the first one was the bid specifications that are going to be given to the general contractor for the replacement of the items. Is the design team writing the specifications, or are we going to another source of help for those specifications?
So the firm I work for, Dark Gray Architects, has been hired by St. Peter's to do the construction drawings, and that includes the specifications, so we will be writing those.
Super, that's excellent to hear. We very supportive about the second issue is, and maybe this is too early for discussion, but I found it, in my experience, it's been right up front with one of those things is change orders. Have we discussed the process by which change orders, and they do come, are handled, especially for things like that may not be disclosed until all the ripping and tearing is done?
Only in the fact that I, for one, have a lot of experience with it, and we have other members on the remodeling team, and John is becoming experienced with it if he wasn't before. So I think while we don't have a complete process, because it's hard when we don't have bids either, because that could be something that we don't know because we haven't even put the documents out to bid yet. But part of wanting to have the great campaign we have is if whatever we have over the bids can be used for contingency for all those unknowns. And so that would be what I say is our kind of process of knowing, we already know that we're going to need 5% to 10% for contingency during the construction, because things are going to come.
Yeah, thank you, Greg, appreciate that.
Yeah, and I did raise that issue recently with governance as we were preparing for this meeting, and that's one reason the language in the motions is a little bit general, so that there's some flexibility. You can see it says basically all monies that have been either obtained by grant or pledged or given are available. So if a change order comes in and it requires more, but we have that available, these motions give our governance council the authority to expend that money on the change order if necessary.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yep.
I've been concerned about the entrance on the front of the church, and we talked about the second entrance, but not the first one. Because I think it's a difficult entrance to get into for people carrying anything in their arms as a child, or good, or old people like us who have a difficult time opening and shutting that door. So I just wondered, is there any way to consider some sort of sliding door in that area?
We have considered it. There's been difficulties in what's there currently that make it difficult, but we can keep having those discussions. Any other questions?
Thank you for the questions and input. I'm going to wrestle with that. All right, so we're on to the voting portion of the fund today. And so what I will do is I will read our first motion, and then if there is a congregant who is feeling bold, you can say "so moved," and then we'll have a second. If you want to save a bit of time, so you can just jump up and say "I second," or you can wait for me to ask for it. And then, in terms of the actual vote, Robert's Rules of Orders does give us some flexibility. If there's an obvious majority in one direction or the other, we can just visualize and see that majority and move forward. We don't necessarily have to count the votes. And so we will make a judgment call on that. If it's not obvious, then we will stop and we will count. We will pause for a moment so that our live stream folks do have a chance to type in a vote so that can be viewed as well. Okay, so here we go with the motion. Approval of remodel projects and oversight. I move that can I have someone move that we approve the projects recommended by the remodel team and authorize them to oversee the projects.
So moved.
Second, okay. And we are now opening the floor for discussion of that motion specifically. Anything from live stream in terms of additional discussion of this particular motion? Sorry? Got it. We'll wait for the 5-second delay. Thanks for the tech detail.
Over here, it's more like 30 seconds if you can give it a bit longer.
It's 30 seconds?
It is up here.
Okay, so we're going to wait 30 seconds for the delay to go through. Any discussion here in person has come to mind maybe after we finished the general question? Can run the mic over to you.
Hey, Eric.
Yes.
Can you, it's Lori back here. Can you give names of the movement in a second?
Yes, so we had Don Beavenhour.
Can we get another one just I can't remember. I love you.
Motioned it, yes. And then we had a couple people yell second. Heather Kane. This is going to quiz my naming ability. I thought I heard another person, but we only need 1 second, so it's okay. Thank you, Heather. All right. Unless there are any objections, I'm going to close the floor and we're going to hold the vote in about 30 seconds. The floor is closed. And we'll pause for 30 seconds and meditate on the fact that it feels warmer up here just because of the light. Okay, let's go ahead and vote. All who approve of the motion as stated, please say aye or raise your hand if you need to raise your hand. And in the live stream, please feel free to type aye, A-Y-E, or yes is fine too. Okay. Yes, sorry, yes. Yes, lots of hands were raised. No one really wanted to say aye. Let's just let that be known. Those who are opposed, please say no or raise your hand at this moment to express your disagreement with the motion. And we'll give live stream 30 seconds or so to get in there as well.
Is she seeing the same feed as us?
I continue to learn more and more about live stream. Apparently we have 2 live streams going right now.
Yeah.
Simultaneously. So we're waiting on both of those to have a chance to get in there. And I appreciate your patience. This is a waiting moment for the church. All right, 10-second countdown until we can move to our second vote. All right, our first vote is concluded. I believe it was obvious that it was approved. If anyone cares to argue with that, please feel free to do so. Also clap. Okay, thank you for that. Let's move on to our motion regarding financing. So the motion I am going to request is that we grant the Governance Council the authority to make financial arrangements, including a short-term line of credit to cover the cash flow against forthcoming pledges, and define the remodel team's funding as all monies and pledges to the Fire Recovery Fund and all related grant monies. Would someone like to so move that one? So moved. Okay, David Hoff, thank you. So Debbie Paguzzi and a couple of other folks seconded simultaneously. And now the floor is open for discussion of our second motion. So let's give this some time. Any thoughts that have come to mind since we did the general discussion or had questions? Rick?
Do we need to specify the size of the line of credit in this vote?
I could address that,
okay.
Yeah. And Jenny, feel free to jump in if I'm saying anything that flashes a red light for you. Yes. So the question is, have we discussed the size of the line of credit? My understanding is we can obtain up to $100,000 line of credit and not have to collateralize that. For those who don't really know business speak, collateral means when you borrow money for your car, and you don't pay your car loan, the bank can come grab your car because the car is collateral. And so in terms of our situation, we can get up to, I believe, $99,999 of a line of credit without having to put the church building up as collateral. So that would be the potential. As Jenny said, we don't anticipate needing to maximize or max out a line of credit that large, but that is the range at which we could operate if we had to. Yes, question?
What happens to any excess donations that are not needed to get the results we need?
I do have a preliminary answer to the question regarding what happens to any excess donations that are not needed to fund the fire recovery or the fire remodeling process. Jenny, if you're out there, feel free to correct me. Basically, we have, throughout my 4 years on governance, been working to maintain what is called a building fund, and that is a fund that tends to be directed towards the hard resources related to the building, whether that be your HVAC system or any other running the building types of operations. And that fund has been on a decline over the last 4 years, just a slight decline, and we've always sort of been wrestling with the fact that we haven't necessarily maintained that fund as robustly as a nonprofit organization might want to. So our preliminary answer to that question is we will use those monies to replenish the building fund. Jenny, how do you feel about that answer?
Yeah, let me come up here and be on camera too. What a wonderful problem to have potentially, right? So this would be something we haven't maybe entirely thought through, but my thought as a treasurer would be that we would see what amount of funds we're talking about at that point. There could be part of the budgeting process or other congregational conversations as we have our annual conversation around the budget every year as to what would happen with those funds. But I think becoming part of the operating reserves of the church and some sort of board restricted fund, the building fund is a very likely outcome.
Thank you for that question. Yes, I know that's one that's popped in my mind. I'd actually forgotten it. Other questions regarding the second motion, which involves the financing of our projects?
Is the rate for the line of credit likely to be adjustable or fixed?
It would likely be adjustable. It would likely start at prime. Prime would probably be the best line of credit rate of interest rate we could get. But having it be interest only, it's a better financing option than say a traditional mortgage, where would also probably be at prime, potentially prime plus 1. So you're not really getting much of a difference on the interest rate. But you do get the flexibility in terms of only having interest-only payments with the line of credit, as well as there's just overall lower costs up front in getting a line of credit because you don't have to go through an appraisal process if the building was collateral for the loan.
I know we're authorizing the governance council to make decisions, so you don't have to come back to us constantly. If there's some unforeseen events in the economy where rates go up or unemployment goes up and pledges look like they're trending, maybe not to come in, is there a mechanism for revisiting it?
Oh yeah, I think this is we're going to have an ongoing conversation and we be reporting to the congregation routinely throughout this process. But this is part of the reason why the motion is written with some flexibility in this, because we recognize that something unexpected could happen, and believe me, I am the one who has to make sure the church's bills get paid, and I'm not much of a risk taker when it comes to that. So, I'm going to make sure that the church is not cutting this too closely, is my personal philosophy on it. So that helps ease some minds out there. That's my philosophy.
I am also very conservative about those things. So if we do get in a situation where we're feeling like the budget's too tight on the remodel, we will come back to the congregation and make it known and say, what do we do now? And we'll get your input and we'll move forward.
I think it's worth pointing out that the current estimate for the project is less than what was raised, and that estimate does include a contingency. So I think we kind of have a contingency on top of a contingency. So if that gives anyone any comfort, hopefully, I think that's worth sharing.
Thanks for articulating that.
As we are voting to entrust some of these decisions to be made by the people closest to things, and that's how it should be, what kind of updates can we expect going forward at our meetings so we can understand what kind of decisions had to be made as they go along?
had actually discussed in our most recent governance meeting how frequently to update the congregation. We've been doing the monthly updates, and I believe we've even done a couple that were more frequent than that. And so going forward, we would appreciate some input regarding how frequently you'd like an update. I hear a monthly. So yes, be in touch with governments or with your pastors, or if you have a strong opinion on how frequently you'd like to hear from us on this. We're listening. But we haven't made a decision, so that's the answer. We haven't made a decision on how frequently to update you. Thank you for that question.
I will also say a bit of technical work, which is if you made a pledge in Rome to the Fire Recovery Fund, please know that you also have to go in and make a gift as well. So making the pledge doesn't automatically give us permission to draw from your bank account. You actually have to go set up the separate gift. So just a point of technicality for our financial secretaries for whom you'll be emailing saying, why aren't you taking my money out of the bank? You have to go set that up separately in addition to the pledge if you haven't already. So. And the church is in a great financial position. I mean, with all of the monies, granted, most of it's insurance money that's spoken for, but we have close to $1 million in the bank from insurance. So, I mean, we have cash, we have things that we can draw on, but it's not like we are planning to just go crazy with all of this money. We have it pretty well in hand scientifically, as best we can do, to what we expect to come in and win, because when you put your pledge in realm, you can set how frequently, and then we can use the reporting to say, okay, on this month you will have this much in the bank, and on this month you'll have this much. So it kind of helps us in that way.
Other thoughts or questions related to the second motion related to financing? How are we doing online? Okay. I will go ahead and close the floor to discussion, and we will hold our second vote. All in favor of approving the second motion regarding financing, please say aye or raise your hands or type in yes, small line.
Aye.
We'll give it another 30 seconds so that you online folks can participate. We have a fast live stream and a slow live stream. If a slow live stream gives me a thumbs up, we'll move forward.
In the slow live stream, you've just stood on stage. In the slow live stream, you just got back on stage.
Got it.
That's how far behind we
I
are.
just stepped up on stage apparently on the slow live stream. There's 3 knees running around. I don't know how to feel about this. Maybe I'll write a book about this. The time I was split in 3. Maybe this is how Voldemort feels.
You have a thumbs up.
Horcruxes and all that. Okay.
Stevie gives a thumbs up.
Stevie just gave a thumbs up to the Voldemort Harry Potter reference.
No. Large,
ahead.
we're good.
Oh, that was the, yes, we're good. Okay, sorry, J.K. Rowling, you lost that one. Okay. All of those opposed, please either raise your hand or say no, or nay if you and we'll give that another 30 seconds. And then live stream, slow live stream, give me a thumbs down this time once we're completed with the no's. Down to the final 10 seconds. It's like football time, right? Football time's not as fast as real time. Ever noticed that? Okay. I believe the ayes carried it very handily, so thank you again for that. And I'll just reiterate what Jenny said in gratitude for all of the support through this process. And I'll hand off to Liz and/or Lori for our wrap-up. Actually, it'll just be Lori because Liz
Liz has a new job.
has a new job.
The church is still the church. And even in moments when we want to celebrate, we name three things. One, give an opportunity to figure out what ministries happen in this amazing building remodel that we're going to do on April 14th, when the Wabash Democracy and Public Discourse Fellows come back and lead us in a grand experience. We will get more information on that, but for now, mark your calendars for April 14th. Stay tuned on details later. Number two, I want to name clearly, we had at least 2 people who had never visited St. Peter's in their lives attend worship this morning, not from the same family. It is a mystery to me, except I get it, it's the internet, how people are finding us in this time and the bravery with which they show up to this community. But I just want to celebrate that you all continue to tell the story of St. Peter's, and it means that people are coming and finding a loving and warm community in which to explore their faith. So let's not forget that that is a reality, and even in our wonderful temporary home of a middle school, we need to do the work of welcome. The other piece, and I'm saying this carefully, so if you would like more conversation, please see me post live stream. I don't feel comfortable sharing all the things on a public live stream. I was in the front of this building when we started this meeting, and then I left because I got word from Pam and Terry Turbush, and their son has died unexpectedly. He gave me permission to share that. I'm going to leave it at that worship for right now. If you could hold them close as they don't even try to make sense of this reality, but they share with the community that they love and that they know is holding them. So thank you for that. With those 3 things, and with a heart that's full, and I know not all of you can see the lights, but they're still back there. They're covered up by remodeling posters right now. But hope, peace, joy, and love and the Christ candle are present. And with them leading us, we will pray. God, for the still small voices among us, for the whispers and the shouts of affirmation, for the well-grounded questions, the gift of time and money, but most of all, for the shared faith that you have offered to us, the people of St. Peter's, in a time that we couldn't anticipate, but that we are now welcoming in some unique way. We pray. We open ourselves to what comes next. We give thanks for generosity of resource and generosity of spirit, and we trust that you will lead us into this next season, allowing us both to dream and to grieve, to offer joy and concern, to be your people, fully known and fully become. God, in your many names. Amen. Bye, lifesavers. Bye. Yeah, y'all can do too. You can stay if you want.
That is my worship. I keep warm. I sing claim your space. Such warm. What are these?
So what did I do?
elevator and then they can't find your way out. Where your car should be. So you're like, I don't know.
We all good? We clear?
Yes, she said bye.
Okay.